Hello there and welcome to all my fellow Christian creatives out there. Tim Risto here, host of the Creative Christians podcast, back with you once again for another episode of AfterThoughts. Listen, it is so good to see you, and I hope you're having a great start to your week or your day or whenever you happen to catch this video. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you can get new content like this every single week. Also, if you're enjoying this video, please like it. And if you know of someone else who would enjoy it, I'd really appreciate it if you took the time to share this video as well. For those of you not familiar with this show, AfterThoughts is my video series, which is really an extension of the Creative Christians podcast. It's just my weekly show where I talk about things related to Christians and creatives, and in particular about our faith. If you have not yet heard the Creative Christians podcast, what are you waiting for? Follow the link on screen or in the description below. Head on over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and any number of other wonderful podcast distributors and check out the show. It is all about and all for Christian creatives, filmmakers, artists, writers, musicians, you name it. We interview guests from different creative fields, and I also tackle topics as I fly solo in some episodes to discuss areas of interest to Christian creatives. So how's your creative week starting out? Mine's starting out pretty good. I'm doing some color grading in a program known as DaVinci Resolve. My fellow filmmakers surely are very familiar with it. I shoot on a Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K. I shoot a very flat image. That means without a lot of color enhancement to it. Put it into this DaVinci Resolve color grading and editing software. Apply a LUT to it, which allows you to enhance the color to bring out a certain character and style to the color, however you want it to be. And then I export the footage or convert the footage out of DaVinci Resolve so that I can import it into Final Cut Pro, Apple program, where I do the editing at. Again, most of my filmmaker friends are probably very familiar with what I'm talking about. But anyway, that's how my week is starting out. I have a little bit of challenge because some of the footage is a little bit darker in areas, and so there's always some level of noise that comes out of these high-end cinema cameras, and you have to kind of deal with that when you're color correcting too. You have to apply some noise reduction or use different tools in the software to help reduce the noise in the image so that it comes out looking much cleaner while retaining the colors and the characters of the image that you want. The darker areas of the footage tend to retain more of the noise. So I've been dealing with that challenge today before I can move on to the editing process. What challenges are you maybe facing in your creative life this week? Or maybe just in your personal life? Are you facing some today already? Are you anticipating some in the week ahead? Whatever the case may be, I would love to offer you some encouragement this week in your creative life as well as in your personal life too. I mentioned in another video that I've been using this devotional here, Encouraging Verses of the Bible for Men, as a supplement to my regular devotional booklet. And today I was using it and came across this verse. Today's verse, Psalm 46:10, "Be still and know that I am God." What a great verse. And again, we're talking about David. David experienced a great deal of trouble, and the only way he survived was by trusting in the Lord. He had to believe that God was indeed God, the creator of the heavens and the earth, powerful enough to help him out of his difficulty. To gain such confidence, David had to turn away from his problems, stop fretting, quiet his heart, and focus on God. Only when he was perfectly still and trusting could he know in a very real way that God was God. How often do we, believing in God, knowing God is there, not fully commit to trusting in Him when difficulties happen, whether it's a small, medium, or large challenge or obstacle in our lives or in our creative process? We tend to always rely on ourselves instead of fully committing to trusting in God. How often do we make those difficulties bigger by refusing to simply trust God that He will guide us through these problems, that He is big enough to handle anything, any obstacle, any problem, any challenge in our life? Take a little closer look at that verse from Psalm 46:10 and 11 here too. Looking at my Lutheran Study Bible here, it's an ESV translation. Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress. A little footnote here on verse 10, talking about that be still part. God's rebuke to a restless, raging world that must obey. Just as wind and sea obeyed Christ's identical word during a storm. This is a reference back to Mark 4:39. Jesus and disciples in the boat, and Jesus calms the storm. Another famous story. Picking up at verse 37 here, it says, "And a great windstorm arose, and the boat was already filling. But he, Jesus, was in the stern, asleep on the cushion. And they woke him and said to him, 'Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing?' And he awoke and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, 'Peace, be still.' And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. And he said to them, 'Why are you so afraid? Have you still no faith?' And they were filled with great fear and said to one another, 'Who then is this, that even the wind and the sea obey him?'" I love that parallel between the Psalm and then this passage here in Mark from the New Testament, and just that whole paralleling of the word be still, or the words be still. Also, that verse 11, the Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress. Just emphasizing both the reason and the source of our confidence. The reason to be confident and the source is in God, right? Be confident, take heart, whatever the difficulty, whatever the challenge. Just be still long enough so that you remember that I am here, that God is here, and that he's here to help you through whatever the challenge, whatever the difficulty. Let's jump over to the Holman Christian Study Bible for a second and take a look at this, because this has a little different perspective on it. This gets into more of that kind of epic, bigger meaning that's really contained in the original passage here. So here, the way this translation goes for verse 10 is, "Stop your fighting and know that I am God. Exalted among the nations, exalted on the earth." This is a little different than that classic phrasing that we love so much, "Be still and know that I am God." Stop your fighting and know that I am God. But really, it's probably a little truer to the meaning. I don't know the original Greek or Hebrew. I don't have that here in front of me. But Holman here does make reference to the fact that Psalm 46 is a lot about the nations raging. Verse 6 here, it says, "Nations rage, kingdoms topple, the earth melts when he lifts his voice." There's a lot of reference to nations here. Verse 9, "He makes wars cease throughout the earth. He shatters bows and cuts spears to pieces. He burns up the chariots." There's a lot of these battle references and imagery here, so that when we come to verse 10, "Stop your fighting," makes sense, right? In the context of nations warring. And so there's really a very definite connection there between the nations and God saying, "Stop your fighting, stop the battling, stop the wars." And he brings it back around to, again, "and know that I am God." Exalted among the nations. There again is that nations reference. Exalted on the earth. So that broader meaning of dealing with the nations. But also it's got this very personal context for you and me, right? For each of us to recognize we can be still in amongst the battles of our daily lives, right? The warring in our daily lives, the battling against our sinful selves and the battling against the influences of the sinful world, that we stop long enough to recognize God, that he is God, and that he's bigger than all these problems, even in our daily lives. Certainly and among the nations and the warring of the nations and the earth. So that's one of the things I love, this epic meaning, and then this very personal meaning too. So as you go about your week, what do you need to remember from Psalm 46:10? Biggest thing is remember that God's there for us, right? Whether you're having writer's block, creative block, whether you're facing a major budgetary challenge for a project or something in between, whether your creative projects are just being hampered by strife or difficulty, whatever the case, lift it up to God. Pray to him. Seek out his word. Look for his guidance. And remember, above all else, just take a moment, take some time to be still and reflect on God. And you'll recognize he's there for you and that he's there to help you through it. It's when we try and do it on our own. It's when we try and make it all about us. It's when we try and rely strictly on our own abilities that we find failure and are confronted by our own weaknesses, which God sometimes has to take us through that in order to come around the other side and recognize the strength of God, humbling us to get to the point to where we recognize and rely on him. Then we can find we can step through those difficulties much, much smoother because we have the strength of God behind us to rely on, him working through us as we face whatever challenges, big or small. So take that with you as you go about your week, and may that be some comfort, some strength, and some guidance. Look to God, pray to God, seek out his strength as you face the week ahead. Blessings. Have a great week, and stay creative.